everyone wants to be successful, and you become successful by solving problems for other people. The bigger the problem, or the more often you solve it for more people, the more successful you will be, the more money you will earn, the more they will give you, the happier you'll be, and so on. But you also succeed by solving problems for yourself. So when you have a setback or adversity, what you do is you say, what can I do now? What's my next step? How can I solve this? What can I do more of or less of? What do I need to start doing or stop doing? And it never occurs to you that you're just going to quit. That is off the table.
Yeah.
The only thing that's on the table is how do we deal with this? And so you become intensely solution-oriented. And I've taught complete half-day and full-day courses on learning how to solve problems and make decisions. And I've written books on it, done audio programs and so on. Because what we do in life from beginning to end is we solve problems. Is if you were to look at your business card, you can take off any title that's there and just write problem solver. Because all your life, from dawn till dusk, you will be solving problems. Little problems, you run out of toothpaste at home, big problems, your client cancels an order, and so on. All of your life, from dawn to dusk, you solve problems and make decisions. And the better you get at it, so it becomes almost like an automatic response. It gets to the point where people start to come to you. And they say, look, I've got this problem, and you just seem to solve problems so well. What can we do? So you ask questions. What exactly is the problem? How did it occur? When did it occur? Where did it occur? Who does it affect? What are the various solutions that we can consider? And so on. And I teach these all the time. So people, instead of responding to a problem with anger or disappointment, they respond constructively. They say, wait a minute, whatever it is, I can solve it. I just have to find a way to solve it. And pretty soon they become automatic. They breathe in, they breathe out, they solve the problem. And it never enters their mind that they can do it. It's just a matter of time. Many solutions don't work. Sometimes you will have solutions that don't work at all, and that are very expensive or maybe even fatal. And those things you can't do much about. But basically, most things you can solve.
The truth will set you free. Now, here's the freedom of the truth. Number one, freedom of the truth, to correct old errors in judgment. That's the freedom of the truth. Because if you don't speak the truth, then you're likely not to correct the errors in judgment. If something's wrong, but you say, hey, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, how are you going to correct the errors in judgment that made it wrong? See, you can't say it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, and finally it turns out to be fine. Say, no. The only way to go from wrong to fine is not by affirmation. The way to go from wrong to fine is to figure out where the errors in judgment were by speaking the truth. Something's wrong here, finding out what's wrong, making the changes. Now it can go from wrong to fine. Here's a good phrase. Affirmation without discipline is the beginning of delusion. Now here's what else the truth does. First, it sets you free to correct old errors in judgment. Here's what else it does. Helps you to set up new, easy discipline, to turn wrong into right, to turn lack into prosperity, to turn skepticism into faith. The final secret is discipline. But in order to turn wrong into right, we must speak the truth. Because only the truth will set you free. Free to correct an error in judgment. Because here's the formula for failure and here's the formula for success. The formula for failure, number one, a few errors in judgment repeated every day. We call that the formula for failure. Now, why would you repeat an error in judgment the second day? Reason, failure doesn't occur at the end of the first day. If it did, it would be helpful, because then you wouldn't do that anymore. But errors in judgment are so subtle because they don't usually show their results until for a while. But a few errors in judgment repeated every day, every day, every day, and sure enough, you're way off course. Business problems, family problems, personal problems, financial problems, emotional problems, we've all got these unique challenges. But when it comes to problems, I found a good way to go after a problem. It's the old, draw a line down the center of the page and state the problem over here. Here it is. Sometimes you got to take some things out of your head and put it on paper. Is to state the problem, put it on paper. Said, I got this to deal with, I got this, I got this, I got this to deal with. Is that all of it? Say, well, no, there is a couple more things. Let's put it all out here. Because to come up here with the answers and solutions, we need to know really what the problem really is. You don't have to live in it, you don't have to dwell in it, you don't have to, sit in it, but you do have to know it. Because you can't come up with good answers unless you know the whole problem. We don't gloss this over now. We go after this. What is the real problem? Now we come up with the answers. Now, there's three major questions to ask to solve most any problem. Number one, what could I do? No use going any further if you could solve it yourself. And it's good to get in the habit of seeing if you can come up with answers on your own. What could I do? And then just do a little what we call develop some working papers. I could do number one, number two, or number three. And then right away you say, I can see right now number three would take too long. Number two, I'm not sure. Number one, my first impression might be the best. What could I do? These working papers. Then if that doesn't do it, next is what could I read, right? Is there a book on this problem? Maybe someone else has wrestled with it and found a solution. Maybe I could check out the book. Here's author number one to number three. You say, well, number three is crazy. This guy's nuts. That's out. Well, maybe number one, number two. And you just keep searching. Also, you might read your old journals. Maybe something you've recorded some time back has got an answer that you've skipped over, and you go do a little research, and sure enough, it's in your own journals. What could I read? Now, if this doesn't work and this doesn't work, now you go to number three, who could I ask? But don't go to number three now till you've really worked hard on number one and number two, because you don't just need the answer to a problem. You need the answer muscle. You need the mental processes stirred. You need to learn the skill of solving problems to the best of your ability by yourself and for yourself. But if that doesn't work, now don't hesitate to ask. But don't ask first. See if you can solve it first. Then you've got some working papers to take to whoever you ask. And you come to somebody and say, look, I've done this, I've researched this, and I still haven't got the answer. Could you help me? You can't believe how much quick, easy help you will get if it's evident right up front that you have tried your best to help yourself. We're all willing to invest some of our answers and time in somebody that we think it's worth it because they've really struggled to try to find the answer. Now, if we can come up with it, wouldn't that be great? So ask, but don't ask first. Now, here's the next part of the success formula. Learning to handle the passing of time. Patience to let the seasons work their work. You can't hurry the spring. It does its work in its time. You can't rush the summer. It does its work in its time. You can't shorten the winter. It's going to be however long or difficult it's going to be. You just must have patience with the unfolding of things, from the beginning to reality, from nothing to something. Just make the note, there's always a way. Guess what's more valuable than money and capital? Ingenuity. The greatest capital in the world is ingenuity. Figuring out a way. I'll find a way. I'll start with nothing and find a way to turn nothing into profit. How can you turn nothing into profit? You sell and buy instead of buy and sell. If you have to, now sure, it's better. If somebody says, yes, I want it, if you got it, you say, I don't have it. But if you will give me your money for this product, I will go get it, bring it to you, make a small profit. If I do it often enough, then I'll have some inventory. But you don't need inventory. Here's the greatest inventory, the inventory of the mind, the inventory of the personality, right? That's the greatest capital. Money serves its purpose, but what's money without courage? What's money without determination? Not much. It's worthless. But ingenuity and courage and determination and faith and charisma and personality. You've got so much to invest besides your money. Make sure the money is the smallest part of your investment. Just a little money and a lot of courage. A little money and a whole lot of ingenuity, and you can turn all kinds of nothing into something. Now, the patience of learning to handle the passing of time. Two things really wreck your chances for the future: impatience and greed. You got to learn to deal with both of those, to let things work out. Here's the other one that's a killer, and that's greed. Contrary to the movie Wall Street, greed is not good. Greed is evil, must be dealt with, must be legislated against, lest some be tempted by greed. Here's what greed hopes for, something for nothing. Here's what greed hopes for, more than its share. Greed hopes for something at the expense of others. You say, well, then how can you truly grow and make a fortune? It's very easy. Legitimate ambition. Find a way to serve the many legitimately. And your ambition now can make you a fortune. You don't need greed to make a fortune. Here's what legitimate ambition wishes for: something at the service of others. Legitimate ambition doesn't need to rise only because someone else diminishes. Legitimate ambition hopes to rise by helping others to rise. But learning to handle the passing of time, patience. How do you turn nothing into something? Here's how you start. There's 3 steps to it. Number 1, imagination. And try to imagine yourself in those new, worthwhile, unique positions. So imagination starts to change everything. Now, imagination is not tangible, but it is almost real. Almost real. It's not real, but it's almost real. But it's hard to say that imagination is nothing. But it's nothing in terms of tangible. It's not tangible yet, but it is the beginning of turning nothing into something. It's the beginning of turning nothing into reality. Imagination. Imagination is the ability to see things that don't yet exist. Imagination is real in the sense that it affects. It'll affect your behavior, it'll affect your enthusiasm, it'll affect your emotions. It's real in that sense, but it's not real in the tangible sense. But to turn nothing into something, you start with imagination. Next is faith, to believe that what you imagine is possible. How do we start to strengthen our belief in that what we imagine is possible to turn it into reality? And there's 2 or 3 ways. One is to believe your own testimony. If you've done it before, why couldn't you do it again? If you've done it once, couldn't you do it the second time? Why not believe in your own testimonial? If I did it before, I can do it again. I was rich by age 31 and broke by age 33. But now my question was, could I do it again? And the answer was yes, of course. I lost the money, but I didn't lose the skills. And that's what's important about personal development. You can lose the money, but not the skills, so who cares about the money? Unless it's getting late and you're like 90 and it's a little difficult to go back to the streets. But hey, once you've got the skills, you own the skills. It's like sales. A skill is more valuable than a sale. Sometimes a salesperson says, I need a sale. I said, no, you need a skill. Sales are temporary. Skills are permanent. So we start with imagination, which is almost real. It's not real yet. It's not tangible yet, but it's almost real. Now we move to faith, to believe that what we imagine is possible. So we study our own testimony. If we've done it before, we can do it again. Here's what else we study. Other testimonials of somebody who did it. Somebody that built a hotel said, yes, I started with some plans and finally believed it was possible, and here it is. Say, well, if it's possible for one, it's possible for another. In fact, sometimes when we hear the testimonial, here's how they finish. If I can do it, you can do it. See, that's a classic testimonial that gives us now what we call faith. And one of the ancient writers said, faith is generated by what we hear, the vocabulary of what we hear, the vocabulary of what we read. That generates faith, to believe that it's possible. Now, faith is not reality. You can't say faith is nothing because it affects. It's like radiation. To us, it's nothing because it can't be seen. But radiation is so powerful, it can kill you. Right? You can't see it, but it has an incredible effect. And that's true of faith. Faith can't be seen, right? With the natural eye. It can't be seen, but it has an incredible effect on your attitude, on your behavior, on your disciplines, on your work for the day, and all the rest. So faith is tangible in that sense, that it affects the emotions, it affects the drive. But we still don't have a hotel. Even though the imagination is very powerful, and even though faith is very real, we still don't have a hotel. Because faith is not a hotel. Now, it's almost. It is so close. Here's what one writer described faith. Faith is a substance of hope. It's not a substance like a brick being a piece of the hotel, but it's almost. It's so close, it's substance. And the writer also said it's so close, it's evidence. Now, not evidence you can see, but tangible evidence that's just as real as all of our human experiences that can't be touched, can't be seen. It's called the unseen magic. Language is the unseen magic. It can't be seen. The words can't be seen as they're transmitted from the speaker to the one who listens, but it can have a profound effect. That means it's more than nothing. Language is more than nothing. But to create something out of nothing, we start with imagination, then we move to faith, which believes it's possible, which is almost real. Ideas gather dust, they don't produce at all by themselves. It's like philosophy is not the end. Philosophy is the beginning. Philosophy must be invested. And if you invest philosophy and attitude in disciplines, then they produce results. Here's a good phrase: wisdom uninvested in labor is wasted. Attitude, even the highest of attitude, which is faith. Faith uninvested is wasted, produces nothing. So the name of the game is not faith. The name of the game is not philosophy. The name of the game is to put faith and philosophy into activity so that it starts making progress. Isn't that true though? Faith and imagination is it's called evidence and substance. Now it's still not tangible, but it's not far from tangible. But now here's what we do with faith and imagination. We deposit it in disciplines and activity. Because faith without the activity serves no useful purpose. Imagination without the activity to translate it into reality serves no purpose. But wisdom and faith deposited in activity creates reality. The reality of a career, the reality of a hotel that wasn't there. But you shouldn't start building the hotel until you have it finished. Is it possible to finish it before you start? And the answer is yes. It would be foolish to start unless you had it finished. Unique things to remember. Now, here's what now turns wisdom and faith into reality, and that's activity, muscle, the labor, the work. Some people go for affirmations, but see that I do believe in affirmations, but here's the key on affirmations, and that is to affirm the truth. If you're broke, best thing to affirm is, I am broke. Something might be wrong with your philosophy, your policy, your plan, and your strategy. So, affirm, yes, but always affirm the truth. Now, here's all you got to do to turn that around. A few simple disciplines practiced every day starts to create success. Not at the end of the first day. The first day is the end of a new beginning. The first day. That you've started a new track, that you've started a new direction. So we must all speak the truth. So affirm the truth. Yes, affirm God is good. Yes, affirm life is full of possibilities. Yes, affirm all the truthful possibilities. But you don't need to try to trick yourself into saying something is okay when it isn't okay. Some people say every day in every way I'm getting better and better. And if that's not true, see, that we call that delusion. If it's not true. If it is true, then it's wonderful, it's fabulous, we should celebrate. But if it's not true, every day in every way I'm getting better and better. See, if that's not true, then it is an affirmation that's destructive. So just affirm the truth. The truth is I lack some skills to multiply my income by 10, which I wish to do in the future. I need to learn the skills. Affirm that you don't have the skills, so that it'll drive you to get the skills because you want to multiply your income by 10. Yes, it is true. All things are possible to the believer. It is true. Errors in judgment lead to devastation. We don't just need the truth. We need the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Here's what we don't need. Delusion. You don't need delusion in order to try to make something out of nothing. All you need is this simple little formula to imagine, because imagination is so powerful. It's the beginning of creating all things that we see. Then faith to believe it's possible. It says what? With faith, everything's possible. Without faith, nothing is possible. So that's a good study to make, creating faith to believe it's possible. But now we deposit faith and imagination into muscle, into discipline. Michelangelo was a genius, but it wasn't his genius that created this famous sculpture. But his genius was so strong and he believed in it so thoroughly that he picked up the chisel and the hammer. And it was the muscle and the chisel and the hammer that created the sculpture. And without the discipline, there would be no sculpture. But if you take your genius, if you take your ideas and your inspiration and your excitement and translate it into muscle, if you want good health, you can study every book there is and you can believe that it's possible to be healthy. But until you fall on the floor and start doing the push-ups, until you jog around the block, right? Until you start working on your good health, working and laboring. Labor pains, we call it. And the mothers in the room would tell us what? It's a unique experience. But why would an upcoming potential mother be willing to put herself through a rather painful experience of giving birth? Here's why. It creates new life. So add this to your repertoire of good ideas. New life only comes from labor. Now, some people try to create it with affirmation, but that doesn't work. New life only comes from labor. That's why we should devote most of our time to labor, because it's the miracle creator. It says 6 days labor and 1 day rest. Don't get those numbers mixed up. And here's why. It isn't rest that creates the miracle. It's labor that creates the miracle. And you just go right down the list. Labor creates the miracle of a career. Labor creates the miracle of a hotel. Labor creates the miracle of a fortune. You can have plenty of miracle. You don't need to engage in delusion. You just engage in reality. And here's what's real. Imagination, supported by faith, invested in labor, works miracle, right? The miracle of a relationship. The labor of my language produces the miracle of sight, being able to see things you couldn't see before. If I labor well enough with the vocabulary and language that I've got, describing the value of my own ideas translated for you, maybe it'll help you to see something today, tomorrow, that you've never seen before. So the labor of my language, the work, and lecturing is hard work. They say 1 hour of intense lecturing is like digging ditches for 8 hours. The intensity and the energy and the vitality it takes. You just become almost exhausted sometimes in laboring with words to get your vocabulary out there where it touches someone's consciousness so that they can see something they've never seen before. And we call that miracle stuff. I don't know how it works. You don't need to know how it works. All you need is a simple analysis like this. But the labor takes the idea, supported by faith, translate it into labor, and it starts producing all kinds of miracle. So now you can understand that you are a miracle worker. Would a miracle worker sleep late? I doubt it. Unique thing about genius. Genius has no sense of time. It's amazing. If you could have met Michelangelo and, you get there and it's like 11 o'clock, it's like midnight. And you said to Michelangelo, isn't it a little late? And Michelangelo would say, late? What's this late? What does that mean, late? I don't understand late. To a genius, it's not late. To the average person, it's getting late. But to a genius, it's not late. Say, well, Michelangelo, I'll meet you here in the morning and watch you get started. And you got to get there at 4 o'clock. And you say, it's really early. And Michelangelo says, early? What's early? I don't understand this. What's this early? It doesn't compute early. Not to a genius, because the genius is consumed by the finished product. And he devotes his imagination and his faith translated into muscle to produce the sculpture. Now, you can do that with your health. Health is just as valuable as a sculpture that inspires the world. Your own education, your own future, your own career, your own relationships, building a hotel, creating success, making a fortune. It's all part of the same scheme of imagination, faith, supported by labor. And now, all things are possible to those that believe.
I came from a poor background. My parents never had any money. They were working people. My father was a carpenter. My mother was a nurse. I left school without graduating. I worked at laboring jobs for several years. And then I got into sales when I could no longer find a laboring job, like most people in sales today. And then I started asking a question which changed my life. And the question is, why is it that some people are more successful than others? Why is this? And I looked around me and I saw people, now I was 23, 24, people younger than me doing better than me. And they weren't any smarter than me. And some of them were dumber. One of the things I say is that nothing will make you madder than to see somebody who's dumber than you, who's doing better than you. And you say, how can this idiot be doing so well? And I began asking this question. In selling, I began asking, why is it that some salespeople are more successful than others? And I did something that very few people ever do. I found later, as I went to the best salespeople and I said, how come you're so successful? And they told me what they were doing, and I did it. And I made more sales. And so people said, how come you're making so many sales? So I told them, and they did it, and their sales went up. And when I got into business, I asked managers, how do you manage in a business like this? How do you organize it? And they told me, and I did it. And so one of the greatest success principles that you'll ever find is learn from the experts. Learn from the people who are already demonstrating the results that you want to get. Read their books, listen to their programs, attend their courses, learn from, and ask them. And they will always tell you. And you can save yourself years of hard work by simply learning from people who've already learned it by themselves. My favorite word in life is clarity. The greater clarity you have with regard to what you're trying to accomplish, the faster you'll achieve it. Yeah. In fact, people with clear written goals and plans with priorities accomplish 10 times as much in life as people without. It's very simple. It's the 10 times factor. Then make sure that everybody that works with you is crystal clear about what job they're supposed to do. Be clear about your 3 most important tasks and help everybody else be clear about their 3 most important tasks. So you get everybody always working on the 3 most important things they can do. And you hire other people who can do the task at a lower rate than your best people. You free them up from small tasks so they can do the things that make the greatest contribution to your overall goals. Yeah. That's the job of a leader. Decide upon your goals and your most important goal, and then every day begin your day with a list. The best time to write a list is the night before, because when you write a list the night before, the next morning you'll come up with all kinds of ideas for the list. It's like goals for the day. Then what you do is you look at your list and you say, if I could only do one thing on this list, what one activity, what one task would I want to be sure to complete before I left town for a month? All right? And that becomes your most important task for the day. Now, the eat the frog concept comes from a story where they say the first thing that you do in the morning is you eat a live frog, you'll have the satisfaction of going through the day knowing that's probably the worst thing that can happen to you, is eating a live frog. And the 2 corollaries of this principle are, if you have to eat 2 frogs, eat the ugliest one first. Now, the frog is your biggest task. It's the one you're most likely to procrastinate on. It's also the one that will have the greatest positive impact on your career if you do it now. And so if you have 2 really important tasks, do the most important one. We say do the worst first. Do the biggest, ugliest one. And the second corollary is that if you have to eat a frog at all, it does not pay to sit and look at it for too long. So what you do is you start on that task. Now, when I've done this talk, or part of this talk, for corporations, very often they will go out and they will have brass frogs made up for all their executives. And the brass frog sits on the executive's desk. And it sits there so when they come into work, the first thing they see is the frog. Or they plan their day and they put the frog on top of the plan. First thing they see is the frog, and it reminds them, start and do the worst first. Do the task that has the biggest ramifications first. And then discipline yourself to work single-mindedly at that task. No matter what happens, if you get pulled away, keep coming back to the task like a gyroscope keeps coming back to center. Keep on that task, because you've now decided that everything else is a relative waste of time except this task. It doesn't mean they're a waste of time, but relative or in comparison with this task, everything else is secondary or worse. If you can do that and develop the habit of doing that, you will double your productivity the first day, and it will just continue to increase for the rest of your career. You will be so productive, you'll get so much done, you'll get more responsibilities, you'll get more opportunities. But here's the wonderful thing. Everybody wants to feel like a winner. Everybody wants to feel like a winner. So how do you get the winning feeling? Simple answer, you win. Okay, how do you win? Well, you cross the finish line first. Now, fortunately, in life, what successful people do, and I learned this after many years, it's so important, is they set up finish lines for themselves that they can cross. And so, if you complete a task of any value, it's like winning a little bit, and you feel like a winner. You start, you work, you complete the task. Even if all you do is wash your car and clean out the inside, you stand back, you feel happy. Because whenever you win, your brain releases endorphins. And endorphins are called nature's happy drug. And they make you feel happy. And your self-esteem goes up. And your self-confidence goes up. And you feel happier and more personable. You're actually a more charming person, believe it or not. When you set up a task and you complete it, you feel like a winner. Your endorphins go up. Your self-esteem improves. Your self-confidence goes up. Now, if you have a list of tasks to do, and you choose to do your most important task, and you complete it, you get a rush. It's called an endorphin rush, like that, and your brain releases endorphins which flood your system and make you actually feel exhilarated. You almost laugh out loud. You're happy. Your heart rate goes up. You're smiling. Sometimes you will stay and will work late at night to complete a task, and you get it done at 2 or 3 in the morning, and you finish it, and even though you should be exhausted, you're happy. You can't sleep. You're walking around. You watch television. Because you feel great. So what do winners do? Is they recreate this feeling over and over until it becomes a positive addiction. Now, a positive addiction is a very interesting subject. You can get a negative addiction to an illegal drug, or you can develop a positive addiction to endorphins. And positive addictions are fed by setting and completing important tasks. Tasks that have an important role in your life. People say, well, isn't that Don't you lose your spontaneity if you're always working on top tasks? No, you're happy all the time, and you are respected and esteemed by the people around you, and you feel proud, and you have a positive self-image, and people like you, and you earn more money. What's to complain about that? So therefore, it's a very simple thing, and that's why the book transforms people's lives. It takes them from rags to riches. Make a list, identify your most important task, start on that, and stay with it until it's done. World-class people have a much bigger vision of what is possible for them. Yeah. One of the things techniques I learned many years ago from an expert was called X to 10X. X to 10X, which means imagine that you could go from X, your current income, to 10X, 10 times your current income. And your first response to that is that's completely preposterous. There's no way that I could increase my income 10 times. Yeah. It's not possible. So then I'll ask an audience, I'll say, well, is there any chance at all that you could increase your income by 10 times in the course of your lifetime? Is there maybe one chance in 1,000? Everybody will say, well, there's maybe one chance in 1,000. Okay, then I'll say, well, now how many people here from the time you took your first job until now have already doubled your income? Every hand goes up. Tripled, most hands go up. Quadrupled, lots of hands go up. I said, so you already doubled your income, tripled your income. So all you need to do now is do the same things that you did to double and triple your income, and you'll double and triple it again, and double and triple it again, and then you'll have increased your income 10 times. And there are people all over the world who are earning 10 times as much as you, and they're no better and no smarter than you are. And what this does is it explodes your thinking, because most of us begin to develop narrow thinking around our current income. And then we adjust our lives, we adjust our appetites, the restaurants we go to, the food we eat, the home we live in, the clothes we wear, the car we drive. We forced our whole world to fit into our current income, whereas top people create a vision. Here's an interesting point. Peter Drucker said that if you do not have a vision to be a world leader when you start your business on your kitchen table, you'll probably never be very successful. So if you're starting your business on a kitchen table, imagine you could be a world leader. And then you ask the question, well, if I was the world leader in my field, how would I be different from today? How would my company be different from today? We were just talking earlier about Steve Jobs and Apple Computer. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak started out in a garage with an idea to put together pieces and make a little Apple computer that people could have at home. Bill Gates of Microsoft started off with this idea that if they could make it usable, you could have a PC on every desktop. Everyone's heard about that. That was his vision, a PC on every desktop in the world. When he said this in the late 70s, everybody said he must be crazy. The heads of the IBM were saying, there's no reason for anyone to have a computer at home. There's no reason for anyone to have a personal computer. And within a couple of years, they were literally avalanched out of the business because you find that everybody wanted a personal computer. The only question was the technology to build it and the programs to operate. Today, if you don't have a computer, you're living in the Stone Ages. People, your telephone is a computer. You have an iPad, you have a computer at home, you have a... So you start thinking of, if your business was world-class, if you were world-class, how would you be different from today? And then here's the key. This is the key. Take the first step. The first step is always the hardest step because it forces you, like a chick breaking out of an egg when it hatches. The first step forces you to break out of your comfort zone. And the comfort zone is so strong that probably 90% of people are held back from their full potential all their lives because of this vice-like comfort zone. And when you take the first step, the only way you can do it is break out. And suddenly you see the second step and the third step and the fourth step. And then as you take the steps, your self-esteem goes up and your self-confidence goes up and you become more creative and you start to think of all kinds of ideas and people say, what has gotten into you? I mean, what are you smoking? Because whatever it is, you should share it with the others. And so this is the difference between top people, is they have a big idea of what's possible and they take the first step.
When I began to study self-made millionaires in my 30s, because I realized I always wanted to be a millionaire, but I had never studied them. And 85% of self-made millionaires, when they were asked, how did you become a millionaire with all the competition? They said, 85% said hard work. He said, it's not a miracle. I wasn't smarter. I didn't get good grades. I didn't come from a wealthy family, but I was willing to work harder than anyone else. And that was my basic personality anyway, work harder than anyone else. And I have never found an exception to that worldwide in every language and culture. Successful people work harder than the average person, and very hard. The average successful person works 6 days a week, 59 hours. In the beginning of their career, sometimes it's 7 days a week and 80 hours. But the average is 59 hours, 6 days a week. And I was listening to an interview of a very successful Hollywood impresario, and the interviewer was saying, what do you do on the weekends with your spare time? And he said, pause. He said, I don't know any successful people who don't work less than 6 days a week. Everybody works 6. I mean, on the weekends, you work. That's what successful people, they work long nights as well. And so many people, unfortunately, never were told that. That if you want to be successful, because everybody wants to be successful, so the competition is fierce. Everybody wants to be successful. And nobody's better than you, and nobody's smarter than you. You have exactly the same abilities. Just like you can drive a car, you can be successful. You can drive a car, you can become wealthy. These people who are wealthy are people who just worked harder than the average person and worked harder for a long time.
Need a little pick-me-up today? Welcome to the new Fresh Motivation app, where you'll find daily motivation, daily quotes. Listen to your favorite speeches in the background or with a black screen, so nothing interrupts your motivational moment, where you can create your personal profile, create playlists of your favorite speeches and quotes, add personal notes, and start setting goals. Fresh Motivation, the home of motivation. Get it now for free on Google Play.